welcome to this panel. We've got an illustrious group of women here on International Women's Day, so I hope everyone's enjoying International Women's Day. So I'm going to be hosting, and we've got about an hour, so we're going to have it as a conversation. So let's just see where the conversation takes us, and we'll have some time for questions as well at the end. So we've got rugby players, international rower, footballers and racing drivers. Yeah? But what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask them the first question. They're going to introduce themselves and they're going to tell me where it all started. Okay? And you know, where did it begin? What happened? They've probably got about 2 minutes each. We've got a nice big panel, so I'm going to start with Aimee. No, so I wasn't going to start with Aimee because that's going there. I'm going to start with Simone.
Okay, yeah, so I'm Simone. I'm a footballer. Currently I play for Chatham Town Football Club, and I guess for me it started on the school playground because one of my first friends was this boy called Brandon, and he was always playing football, and I was like, well, I want to play with you guys, but then I didn't want to kick a football because I was used to playing netball, so the safest option for me at the time was going and goal. So that's where I started on the school playground, and then I went through some of the boys' teams, and then I spent a lot of my youth career at Millwall Lionesses, and then I spent a season at Chelsea under-21s, and I decided to go off to the US on scholarship. So I was at Yale, and I was playing football there, which was really fun. And I was also studying film. And then now I'm back in the UK, and I started playing for Chatham, and I started my international career with Trinidad and Tobago in the Gold Cup. So yeah, no, it's been fun. Different moments, different growth moments, especially in the last couple of years.
But your position,
Yes.
you say that was determined by what happened that very first time?
Yeah, because I was used to going on the netball courts with my mum, and I would watch her a lot, and I'd like play at half time and do the scores and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm used to using my hands. Like, this is what's going to happen. I did not expect to be using my feet so much as a keeper, especially how the game's changed, but yeah.
Great. So there you go, very first moments, and that can determine where you sort of end up.
Yes.
In terms of an international career. Thank you very much, Simone. I'm going to come next to Gemma.
Yeah. Okay. Hi. My name is Gemma Duncan, and I have played all of my rugby at Medway Rugby Club for the past 16 years. I'm currently the women's chair. It started for me at the bottom of our road playing football with the boys, and our neighbour decided he was going to start a girls' rugby team, and he asked me 3 or 4 times, and I kept saying no thank you, no thank you. And on the last time I was like, if you stop asking, then okay, I'll come along to a training session. So I did, and I was 16 at the time, and I stayed for a season, and there was only about 7 or 8 of us, not even a full squad at the time, but they were really great girls, and yeah, the coach said keep going and you could probably play county, this, that and the other, and I was like yeah, whatever. And then I left, and I went off and I got a job, and I spent 10 years working really, and then I thought, I missed something, something's missing, like, I need to do something, and I went back, and I've been there ever since, and I should never have left.
And can you tell us a bit about what position you were playing and what?
So, in the rugby world, I'm a forward, so basically I carry the ball and just run into people and hope that I don't get hurt. My hair's not good enough to be a back, so, and I'm what's called a utility forward, which means I can play every position in the scrum, but at the moment I'm playing front row, which means, yeah, scary stuff at times.
And I suppose what I'm taking from that is that again, it's about you were playing as part of your local sort of community, weren't you? You were playing out with your friends and neighbours, and your coach, that individual spotted a talent and then asked you to go and play. And interesting that you've come back, because as think a lot of women do that. We can talk about this later about how maybe they start for a bit, but then feel actually I'm missing something in my life.
Absolutely, yeah. Without the rugby, like I know it'll be a later conversation, but the opportunities and the friends and just the people that you've met just once, yeah, do impact everything. And without it, yeah, I don't know where I'd be socially. I don't think, because as much as it's the sport, it is the social side as well.
Great, thank you. Coming to Sara.
Hi, I'm Sara. I actually started out as a swimmer, swimmer at Black Lion Swimming Club, like down the road. And I actually only started doing swimming lessons because my brother was doing them, and he got a Mars bar, and my mum said I couldn't have a Mars bar because I didn't swim. So that was the first bit of food that got me into a sport. And it continues as well. So, and then I ended up doing that. I was really lucky actually, and I think this thing that gets missed a lot is my birthday was really helpful for my sport. So 1st of September is the start of the new year for swimming, and I'm at the 8th of October, so I was like one of the oldest kids, and it was a lot easier for me. And so yeah, I did really well in swimming. It was like international. Got invited onto the GB team. Went for a bike ride, and I got hit by a lorry. So I broke my elbow. I remember trying to keep it quiet, but it somehow got out that I broke my elbow, and so I got a phone call saying swiftly that I was no longer with the GB team. And then, so that really like hit me when I was younger. That was like my first sort of big, like, what do you call it, like, barrier. But then I kind of took it as like it was a good omen for me, because at the time my mum had cancer, so it was like nice to be at home rather than like darting off with my swimming. So then I chose my uni based on which universities had a 50-minute swimming pool, and which unis were 2 hours from where I lived. So that way I could go to Bath, and then my parents wouldn't accidentally find me. So it was my goal. So I went there, had a really good coach who was there, and he didn't like, he let you be a uni student, but also didn't like take any, didn't let me like get too lazy. So I still did the whole uni life, 24 hours a week in the pool. And then for a bit of a joke in like the gym, and because somebody had offered me a burger if I went to go and try rowing, I ended up trying rowing, and at the same time, after these free burgers ran out, I ended up rowing a little bit more and swimming a bit more. And then my swimming coach and the rowing coach, and he said that they could have me as long as they looked after me, which was really nice. And then I went into rowing. I then did a test, and they gave me a boat, and it was just lucky that I didn't have to go through like the money side of sport. And yeah, I got sponsored with a boat and some blades, and then worked my way up through a sort of like an individual program. So it was like you learn to scull, so I don't think much about rowing, you have 2 blades. And then I got as far as I did with that. It kind of felt a bit like school, so I left. I left after that and went to follow some of my friends to London who probably promised to cook me dinner or something. And yeah, I moved in with them, and then started rowing out of like a uni that wasn't mine. And I ended up learning how to do sweep rowing, which is like more famous as the like the 8th, you know, like the Oxford Cambridge boat race.
Oh, right, yeah.
Rowing. So started doing that, and then we had a couple of years, I did a really good run, but I got a hernia, and I decided that I wasn't going to come back. I tried to come back after it, and I missed out on trials, and that was on the Olympic year. So it felt like I was doing really well, and then it didn't go well for me. So with the hernia, and then on a night out, somebody offered me breakfast if I went and trialed. If I trialed the next day at my new, because I decided to quit rowing so I could do a master's, and I was saying to my new boss, like, I'm going to join the triathlon club because it'd be a bit more my own time, and he said, no, I'll buy you breakfast if you do a 2K test tomorrow, and which is the rowing test the hard rowing test. And so the next morning I turned up drunk and did this rowing test, and then ended up winning out at the uni. And so then it ended up being like this whirlwind of, I really didn't want to row, but I ended up like in a boat and then the girls were great, and then we went for breakfast after training, and it just like
So
snowballed. Yeah.
So what I've picked up is that, well, obviously food's very important to you, as we can see. But I suppose I've also picked up, we didn't talk about this later, is that obviously injuries played a bit of a part, and a bit of a knockback because when you were talking about your elbow, I was thinking, well, actually, you need an elbow, don't you, for rugby, very much. But actually, when they, the swimming said actually not in the team. So we'll talk a little bit more about how women come over from sort of types of adversity. But thank you very much. We're not going to value anything except a cup of tea. But thank you. That's great. Tracy.
Hi, I'm Tracy Bullock from Medway Rugby Club. I'm the chair of the whole club and work alongside Gemma. And my introduction to rugby was really in my mid-20s when I met my husband who played rugby, and then we used to go and watch Saracens because we lived in London at the time, and absolutely fell in love with the game. It was probably the first kind of sport that I'd watched live. And yeah, really enjoyed being part of that and the thrill of that game. And then fast forward, having my children and my two sons, and we joined Medway Rugby Club when they were in reception. As soon as they could get out, they were quite boisterous boys and they needed to have an outlet. Rugby seemed to be the perfect opportunity. And I just got involved with the club. I loved everything that we were doing there. I loved the family environment of the club. I loved the fact that there was a pathway all the way through to the seniors, and there were so many opportunities for them. And the boys would all go on rugby tours and stuff together. So we made a lot of friends around the club and the community within the game. For the boys, it's given them opportunities to play at a higher level. And my son still plays my youngest son is in the first team. For me, I then became like that enthusiastic mum who was helping out with the cake sales and stuff like that. And then I took over as treasurer, and I was treasurer for 10 years. And then in lockdown, I became the chair of the whole thing. And if you told me when I walked through the door 20 years ago that I would end up in this position, I would have laughed you out of the park, because it's just not me. And yet here I am, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and I love everything that we do at Medway Rugby Club, and everything. My biggest regret really is that I didn't get the opportunity to play when I was much younger. I did a training session when I was 35 with the women's team. Absolutely loved the day, but I remember hitting my head, twinging my back and going, oh, I'm too old. But at 35 I kind of bit myself off. And then I played touch rugby for a number of years, and I absolutely loved it. And I love that team sport because for a number of my adult life, I'd only ever played, I'd only done keep fit and exercise and stuff like that. And being part of the team was really, was just brilliant. It's a great experience.
Well, I can certainly tell that you are very enthusiastic. You sort of exude that, let's go and do it. And that's what wanted the sport, isn't it? That people who can bring that enthusiasm, bring that organisation actually, so that they enjoy it, but actually they're allowing and facilitating and I'm sure there's hundreds out there at Medway that you're facilitating them to be able to play a sport that hopefully they'll love, and lots of women in that as well. Thank you. Right, Aimee, I'm coming to you now, actually. So, how did it all start?
So my dad was a professional racing driver, so I grew up around motorsport. And I was saying to the girls earlier, I had always gone down to the track and seen a professional team, and I thought that motorsport was something you had to fully commit to. Once you somehow had to get a team or a car, there's a huge investment. So I dared not utter the words to my dad, I want to go racing. Because I knew he would go full throttle into it, and I wanted something good, and I didn't like it. So I sort of sat on the sidelines for a while. And then in my early 20s, I found out about something called a ride and drive, which is you get a race license and you literally rent a car for one race. And there's some really low budget racing, and I saw this championship called the Citroen C1 Championship. C1s are something many people will be familiar with. They're noddy cars, they're road cars. Most people's grandmother has one at some point, and I actually bought my first one off a grandmother off eBay with cash, and we turned it into a little race car. But how I actually started, I saw my dad got invited to do a 24-hour with one of these as some fun with some friends, and that was my first experience of it. And fast forward a couple months later, I was sitting with my fairly raucous Irish family at Christmas, and everyone had a drink, and someone goes, Patrick, why don't you get Aimee racing with you? And he said, oh, she wouldn't be interested in racing with me. I took that to great affront and said, yes, I would, and the conversation kind of escalated this back and forth, and ended up with him saying in front of our whole family, fine, we'll go racing together. So that was him locked in, that was a verbal contract made. So I wanted, he's got no other kids, and all the dads, loads of father and son teams, like it'd be really nice for him to have one race with me, you know, let's share that one thing. So I thought we'd do one race, and I got the car and absolutely loved it. And that was it. And from there, okay, we'll do one more race, okay, we'll get our own car. Okay, maybe we'll actually commit to this championship now. And that's just...
And how old were you when you first did that?
I got my first license in 2019.
Right.
So in COVID, so I was in my early 20s,
Right.
like about 23. I think early 20s.
It's still early 20s, yeah.
Tell the sponsors I'm 26. That's
No,
what
no,
I'm
still early 20s.
So so it was really late because we had obviously COVID messed up a lot of things. So I had you get one racing license every year, and that's meant to last however many races you do. At one point, I had 3 years of both racing licenses and 3 races under my belt. So literally, I was doing one a year for a while. So it was all pretty new. But I've done a little bit of karting back in the day, and obviously I've always liked
You've been
driving.
around it, yeah.
I've been around driving. We used to go out before I started to actually drive on the road. My dad took me to Norway. He said, you're going to drive on a frozen lake before you go out on the roads because you've got to learn to control a car. And I was like 6 feet, just going sideways in this beam and loving it around this racetrack cut out of a frozen lake, which we still do every year now.
Yeah.
So I've always been around motorsport and liked it, but it wasn't until a few years ago that I actually got behind the wheel myself.
So, do you think, and obviously your dad is quite important, but do you think why he didn't ask you because he thought maybe you didn't want to do it because it had always been like men and boys?
Yeah, I mean, he was keen to get me a car. I was quite into horses when I was younger, right? And the thing is, a lot of drivers nowadays, they'll start at age 6. And they start karting at 6, competitively karting by 8 or 9, and the progression then you're in a Saxos or a junior series by 14. So once we kind of got to the age that I was, that ship sailed. It's expensive, it was dangerous. Karting was actually worse than the cars. I barrel rolled a Citroen 6.5 times over down the hill. And all I was worrying about was the fact I was on a Henley the weekend before, and there's the rose going into my brain, so I'm hanging upside down. I was absolutely fine, but karting is quite different. Bigger accidents happen in karting.
Right.
So trying to convince my mum to let me get in the car when no other car, I was always already quite a weak kid at school, I didn't need another difference to be honest. But it just, had I shown an interest and wanted to push it and not been into horses, then I think
It would have
we
happened a bit earlier.
would.
So I think what I've heard is that so family and community is quite important about having that support around you, whether that's individual family or sort of a wider type community. And I suppose that's what we're all trying to do, and I try to do it netball. You try to encourage, aren't you, and empower and facilitate young women to sort of enter that sport and stay there. Really. We can talk a bit about that. So thank you very much for all of your introductions. A bit of a quick one now. Who did you look up to when you were sort of starting out on your journey? Which was a sporting person that you thought actually that person sort of I want to be like them, or that person actually has inspired me? Who should we go to first, Sara?
So despite what has come out about the guys since, Lance Armstrong was my person.
Right. Yeah.
I'd read all of his books. I was at once I'd done Harry Potter, it was just autobiographies constantly, and I really I liked how crazy he was, how he was so self-driven. And I used to think that I used to swim before school, and I didn't think 3 times was enough, so I used to ask my parents to drop me off before I went to school. So I went to Who, and I used to swim on my own before I went to school, and just because I thought, well, that's what Lance would do. Lance used to cycle to school, so my mum won't let me cycle, which is fair point, I have to break it down. But I used to swim, or I used to go for runs in my lunch break. I used to try and do loads of extra training because I thought, well, that's what Lance would do. And I just thought it was the drive, and I think what made me really like him was it was at the exact same time I broke my elbow and my mum had cancer, and obviously he had cancer twice, and it was like it didn't seem like my barrier was anything like his barrier, so like I should just get over it, and I think that to me made and everyone always reminds me at uni that the morning of Lance telling Oprah Winfrey that he took drugs, the morning of, I was like, he did not. And I would not take it from anyone, and then I watched it and I was like, maybe he did.
But that, as you say, that sort of
he still doesn't
drive
take away
and
who,
determination.
I mean, he did take drugs, but he was still a very driven, single-minded person.
Thank you. Tracy?
Oh, I was just thinking, what sports person? I haven't kind of got that passion for an individual sports person like that, really. I used to watch, maybe come back to me on that one.
So I'll come back, okay, I'll come back to you.
I thought I would say Rachel Yankee, because I remember she came to Millwall, one of our sessions, and stood with all of us and was coaching for a bit and talking to us. And I feel like when I was younger, the opportunity to become a professional footballer felt very slim. I remember people would ask me, like, what do you want to be? And I would never say a footballer.
Right.
I would say, oh, maybe a lawyer or a journalist or something like that. I feel like having someone like her, also being a black woman at Arsenal in England and being able to play, it was really inspirational for myself and like the other black girls on the team. But I also think I feel like I look to my family a lot because they were very sporty. Like I said, I go to my mum's to games, my uncle was a athlete, and my granddad was like into basketball and cricket. So I was always surrounded by people who I think were very competitive and always wanted to like be their best in the sport they were doing.
So you have other people around you,
Yeah.
but also you know that the importance of seeing people like yourself. So race, you know, is an important sort of other black sort of athletes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, great. Gemma.
A bit like Tracy, I found this question really hard because, again, like these women, sport is more community-based for me. And being a teenager in the 90s, there wasn't even women's sports. Women weren't really there. I mean, the Spice Girls hit the scene, and it was like, whoa. But yeah, even like I don't come from a sporting family. So I would say, without being cliche, my PE teachers, because my experience at sport in school, saying to these guys, the curriculum for women's sport in school, or girls' sport in school, I literally had netball, hockey and rounders. That was it, that was the extent of it. So it was like, well, I don't really like any of them. And I asked to play football, and my PE teacher said, well, the girls don't really play football, we haven't got a girls' team. Please, can I play football? And I went, okay. And they put me in the football team. I was the only girl. I got put as left back, and I never saw the ball all season. But the fact that she pushed to get me in the football team, I was like,
I think that is a really powerful message, I think, because I think it's important for young people today. You know, maybe some people don't have the same support networks either in community or families that others do, and so having someone that is school-based who is able to channel you into something, I think is really powerful and really important. So.
It was just that, like you said, that support and the fact that, yeah, go on, you want to have a go? Go and have a go.
Yeah.
I'll do what I can to allow you that opportunity. So, yeah, without her, I'm terrible at football, but...
No, but
I would say the same thing, really.
Yeah.
For me, when I looked at this question, I thought it was my school teachers. I was one of those people who actually quite enjoyed school, but my head teacher, she was brilliant because she just always inspired us to go, you can do anything, you can achieve anything. And the other thing was firm handshake, so which I think was actually a really good piece of advice.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Right. But it is, it's about telling people that they're good enough to do it, or give it a go anyway, the person. Aimee?
I've never been really one to, that sounds bad and look up to other people. I've looked at even celebrity gossip when I was younger. These are strangers. Why would I? I've never been able to get a connection to someone I don't know. There's been events like Guy Martin is an amazing bike rider, and there's a really, really hairy race in the Isle of Man, which is on the road. It's really dangerous. Lots of people killed every year. And his bike.
Is that a TT?
It's TT. Yeah. His bike blew up, and he was in a ball of fire, and he came back after that and continued racing. And I think that action is incredible. So there's been some people who've done things that have inspired me, I suppose.
Yeah.
But this sounds super, super cliche, but I really get inspired by my friends. And it's the people around me. I can pick out things like my friend Philip, she's really organised, and she's just amazing. I was like, be more Phil on some days. And my friend Charlotte, she works with me now. She's incredible, came from zero NAMI qualification. She has a son very young, and she's basically running my company better than I run it now. And she's just like, I'm inspired by her because she's like, I don't need a piece of paper to tell me I can do this, I'll figure it out. And now she's on her way to become a fully chartered accountant, and it's like, the people
it's really
around
important
me.
to have people around you like that, isn't it?
I get inspired by people around me,
Yeah, having that positive thing. Thank you. Really interesting. Sort of some of the general things coming out. I suppose Simone, what are the biggest issues you think are facing your sport at the moment? What do you think?
I feel like there's still, it's been great watching it grow. We talked about earlier since the Euros. I feel like in England, football's just really been booming, and I feel like hopefully there'll be more team expansions, because I feel our leagues are still very small. But I guess for younger girls as well, I feel like there's still an issue of accessibility, in the sense of where are these clubs based? Like, a lot of the time, I was lucky that Millwall was in London. I would go to Sydenham, and then when it got further out, more Dartford way or further, it was a struggle because Mum had to take me after work, and sometimes we'd be late or we'd be missing stuff. And I think now there's still an issue of keeping girls in sport, and accessing those teams that are slightly further out. If they can't take public transport, they're too young. One of my teammates right now, she's working with England to try and keep those city people in the game, or people that don't have a lot of income. And I feel like it's just keeping people in, because we don't have the same funding as the boys. I hear about boys who are younger than me, my school friends' brothers, and they'd be like, oh yeah, Palace are just going to pick him up, and then he'll go from school. And I was like, I never had any of that. It was kind of having to rely on the community around you, which is really important. Because sometimes it would be, I'm going with friends' dads, or now I'm still having to be like, hey, can you give me a lift? Because I'm in Croydon right now, and I'm having to travel to Chatham at least 3 times a week. So
So do you still, I suppose you still think there's an inequality in funding, even at grassroots level? Presumably are there more sort of grassroots teams?
I think that's the exciting bit, that it's still growing. But it still needs to be pushed.
And so have we got enough sort of women coaches and
I think I've been lucky that growing up I actually had quite a lot of women coaches. A lot of them were actually playing the game still. But I do think there still does need to be a push for more. I feel like the higher up I've gone, the more male coaches I've had. Whilst in the grassroots level I had a lot more female coaches. Definitely need to sort that. But
right, there you go. Much more funding there for in the women's game. Aimee, do you want to go next? Because I saw you sort of agreeing with some of that.
I think it's I think for in most sorts it's perception, but definitely there is so many teams that you can do karting or anything for men, but actually a lot of girls are intimidated to go into that environment, and having a more woman-friendly, even changing rooms and stuff. You'll have a huge stall of men's rooms, and then you have one bathroom for the girls' changing room. You're trying to get your overalls on, not Steph or something. It's gross. But I think for the main thing is the view on women in most sport. I personally have never actually had any negativity from men. They're all been really supportive. But the problem is, we don't have the numbers.
No.
So if I took 100,000 people at random, 100,000 men, loads of them would be useless, some of them would be really good. And if you took the same 100,000 women, I think you get the exact same result. But at the minute, we have 100,000 men and a handful of women. I was saying earlier, I'm the only woman in my championship, and there's 40 men and me. Like, what are the odds that I'm going to be that Lewis Hamilton or that Max Verstappen? And so, like, I've never raced against a woman who's competitive against me, and that's not being big-headed. It's just a fact that generally out of the grid, because it's that one-off. But you get some amazing women drivers as well. So I think at the club level, a lot of guys have seen a woman go round. It's her husband racing, or she's doing it for fun with her sons, and she's not really that committed to it. So she doesn't want to fight into the corners, and they have this perception that women aren't aggressive enough. A lot of them are good at hill climbs, but you're not against people. You just basically, it's time trial. It's a slightly different thing. So I think for us, we just need more numbers, and then, I was saying earlier, I went to an award ceremony, and as the senior awards, I was the only actual woman driver who won an award. There's another woman, but she was in a more like administrative role.
Yeah.
But then the junior awards, it was 50-50.
Right.
There's just as many girls winning it under the age of 17.
So that is more positive.
So it's just numbers. We need the numbers, and then with that, I think will come the funding, the bigger changing rooms, the less intimidating environment for a young woman.
And obviously we've got Butmore Park up here.
Yeah, Butmore Park with
Yeah. So, but I suppose I was just reflecting when I was thinking about this. I'm not sure I've ever seen anything where it's been advertised actually, come and give it a go actually. I'm sure it probably is, it's just, and then I'm, quite in sports, you do quite a lot of sport, but I just, sometimes about those overlapping sports, you might get somebody who's good at one sport wants to try another as well, isn't it? I just don't see that advertising in the same way that I might do from
it's quite
actually.
Those, like, motorsport is kind of its own category.
Yeah.
It's not like, football, rugby, it's all in the field, it's all sports. You said you used to play netball, even rugby has got like this whole but motorsport is its kind of own thing, so unless you have a friend or someone, it's quite weird that you get the guy in track day, he's like, I've never done this before, it's booked this on a whim, and he's got his like box of Corsa and a rented helmet, but it's quite rare.
Yeah.
You usually have to have a path into it.
Okay, that's another lesson for us. Right, rugby. What's the biggest challenges facing rugby?
In a way, you said about the facilities, and equally, a lot of the community sports facilities have been set up, in the 50s, 60s, and they're all communal changing rooms. So it's hard for us to actually host men and women's games on the same day because we just don't have the space to kind of change that with the showering and changing space. Plus also there's more and more women officials coming into the men's game as well.
Right.
And that is equally as difficult to manage because then they don't have anywhere to shower. So sometimes they've actually just had to finish the game, get the car back home. So that's, from that point of view, I think the schools not actually teaching rugby, so we, trying to get out and reach and provide some kind of coaching into the schools. Gemma does that, some of the local schools. Tag rugby is great, and Medway are really good about hosting their mini youth games involving them tag rugby, but there's nothing after that for them. But that is quite a good way for us to kind of reach out to those kids who have got an interest in it.
So, Gemma, you go to schools. How is that?
Well, it's just, I think, everything, and I think it's just probably cliche as well, but it's that unconscious bias from men and women, where you just don't. So I was in a school, for instance, this week, and we had 18 girls to the session, fantastic numbers, but some girls hadn't come because the parents were like, oh, rugby, it's a bit physical, so no. And they're not wrong, it is physical, but have a go.
Yeah.
And you don't like it, then you go away. But it's just the fact that they've stumped that opportunity for them to make that decision for themselves, boys and girls equally. But more on the girl side, it is just that, ooh, is that a girl's sport? I don't know if you get it in your line. It's a bit rough. It's a bit rough and tumble.
My mum
Even in 2024, 25, you're still facing, and it's not because anyone's being horrible, they just don't think.
It's just a
That's all it is, it's just a perception.
It's
And
about
you see
knocking
someone,
down those perceptions.
yeah, and
And
you
as you
watch
say,
it, and you hear those tackles, and you do hear that, and you're like, ooh. And I can tell you, it really doesn't hurt as much as it really does. The occasional time it might, but most of the time you get up, shake it off, and go again. And you know, you're a bit annoyed that somebody got you down, so you're going after it. But yeah, I do think everything is changing. Evolution is slow, but it's going. It's all going in the right direction. But I think it just needs more advertisement, more promotion, more. Here we are. Come and try our sports.
And more investment in facilities, I'm hearing too.
More funding, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And good to have, you know, women in positions of authority actually, because you can sort of do something about that. You can see it from a different perspective, can't you?
Yeah,
Bring a different view.
yeah. And what's been really interesting with the RFU, they're putting they're focusing on developing leaders, leadership and work with women for the next 3 years, so 3 years. And so, and also not only older members and ex-players and stuff and players, but also focusing on the young people. So they're doing to inspire young leaders from 20 to 25 to try and kind of bring all of that and to break down those barriers, to get them involved in coaching, to kind of, because in rugby that old boys network is really strong. I mean, in a real minority all of the time.
Yeah.
There was a road show. There's an issue going on in rugby at the moment with the chair who received a big bonus. So there's been a road show headed up by Bill Beaumont. The one in Dartford, it was held at Dartford Valley. I think there was some room full of guys, 100 men or something, and 3 women. And that's just what you face the whole time. And it's not that I haven't kind of felt that prejudice like you were saying. You know, either I've been very welcome in my role and in other clubs, but it just is that it's the lack of numbers, it's the lack of people, the lack of women involved. Even at our own club, most of the men are the coaches in the girls' room. And obviously we want to inspire more coaches and train more coaches to take those positions up within, so it is in the women's. And that will evolve because we now have the largest women and girls section in the UK, which is just an amazing achievement. And so there's 100 girls all playing rugby, over 100 girls playing rugby from the ages of 5 up. So that will happen, that will evolve. There's more people coming into the game.
Great. That's you know, as I say, we just need more of you. It's like showing me. Right, in a few minutes we'll be coming to the audience to ask some questions, but I suppose I'm interested in, if you've got the benefit of hindsight now, and you're all sitting here, what advice would you give to your younger self? Who's going to go first? Who should we ask first? Tracy? Oh, or Amy's got a hand up. Amy's got a hand up. Go.
I thought about this a lot.
Right.
But, if you're in a man's world, there's nothing worse than a woman who's trying to be a man, but you also don't have to go in as a woman in a man's world. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Just be a person and approach it like a person, but like people, because that's what it is, you know. I see a lot of women who go in and they feel they have to be the woman, you know, and it's like, it always create that divide. Equally, I see girls who think they have to laugh at laddie jokes that they don't fully find funny, or, you know, just have the confidence that your actual personality is your personality. And that definitely does come back more with age. As you become adults, you know, men and women become friends more. But I wish I had been more confident with that and not overthought how to act. Not seen it as like men are from Mars, women are from Venus kind of thing. Just be like, humans are from Earth, you know?
Yeah, thank you. Let's go next. Everyone put a hand up, go next.
I can go.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, I've been, one of my teammates, when we're in the car going back together, she often puts on like these inspirational talks. And we were listening to like this Kobe Bryant interview. And one of the things he was saying, he was like, I messed up in this championship final, like I kept throwing air balls, but it's okay, like we just had to diagnose the problem the next year I came back. So I think I've been trying to talk more positively to myself, One of the things I wish I could say to my younger self is to just like make your mistakes and just learn from them. You don't have to carry them. I feel like in my position it's easy to put a lot of pressure on yourself because I've always felt like I'm the last person standing. Like I need to save everything, but like it's remembering to give yourself grace. I'd say to give myself grace, and also from another inspirational video my teammate put on. There was this one guy who was saying like, you belong here, and I feel like that's something I want to remind myself when I'm younger, is that yeah, you're in this space for a reason, you belong in it.
Yeah, really good. And a bit about it's okay to make mistakes. I was saying to the start of the summer netball season today, and I was saying to them, if you do something wrong or throw a bad ball or somebody else intercepts it, that's fine, but just smile and move on, because don't let your head go down, because the moment your head goes down, you've sort of lost it really. It's fine, it is okay to make mistakes, and let's think about it, we'll watch it, and then let's think about why did that mistake happen, and we can improve it for next time. So it's about giving yourself permission to do that, I think, and that was I think a really good message. Right, Gemma, I'm coming to you now.
Don't be afraid to ask questions.
That's a good one, yeah, really good, yeah.
Because I think, and especially from mine, sometimes, another question, because I think women just generally question things a bit more, and they probably overthink quite a lot, and sometimes are made to feel a little bit silly for asking those questions, which then stops you, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It just stunts you a little bit, and I think going backwards, don't be afraid to ask those questions. If you want to know, ask. It's the only way you're going to get your information. And if someone shuts you down, ask again. Ask until you get your answer.
I think that's an amazing one for life, really, isn't it? You
Yeah.
know, whatever, whether you're in sport or at school or at work or whatever, if you don't know something, ask. And you know, and if someone laughs at you, it's their problem, not yours. And, yeah, no, really good. Thank you, Sara.
I think mine is like almost like similar to it. All of them is just like when you're younger, you think like I think it's like a more of a naive approach that you always think like success must be every day, must be moving forward, it must be perfect, but it isn't. And like I wouldn't be where I am now if I didn't break my elbow. And you know, like you don't know where you might have continued on sport, swimming, and it might not have been the right one for me. And it's just like all those big things that led to something going well for me were just like felt like such random chance at the time. And I just think that like being more confident when I was younger, like you know, like success isn't a straight line, it's a wiggly line. But then also the like success can come out of the most random opportunities. So it's almost like knowing that, you know, it's not a straight line to success, even though like, especially now with Instagram, I'm so glad people grow up with that. But like you do think that, you know, someone one day decides they want to be famous, they posted one picture and then boom, they were famous. Like, but like it does change and it will look different for everyone, but the goal can still be the same. And I think that's just really important to remind yourself that like if you're going like a different route, like how you mentioned, like you went to Yale and stuff, and it's like, you know, there's so many different opportunities. You could go straight to uni, like out to America to uni, or you could be in the UK for uni, and but you could both end up like two different people could both end up at Chatham Town, and it's like it's just the path that's right for you, and there's no wrong
Right or
path.
wrong path.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's really good. Thank you. Very inspirational. Tracy.
For me, it's to retain that confidence that I had as a 16-year-old going into an over 18s disco. just go for it, you know, and what's the worst can happen? It doesn't go quite right, or somebody says no. It's not the end of the world, there's other opportunities, and just to keep going.
Right. On that note, I'm going to turn to the audience now and ask if there's any questions. I've not quite finished with you yet, but you've only got a few more minutes. You can have a little rest. Okay. Anybody like to ask any questions? Oh, hi.
I just wanted to say to you all, you are so inspirational. I've really enjoyed it, and it's so thought-provoking what you said. And I don't know if this is a question, just kind of an observation. I'm 65. When I was at school, I started out playing football with my friend and his brother and various friends, and I loved it. But there was no opportunity at that time at all, in any way, shape or form, for me to start playing football in a more serious way. So to actually see where it's moved from in those intervening years is great. So it's heading in the right direction is what I'm saying. But you know, with all the provisos that you said, so just wanted to kind of to say that. Yeah. Just.
And are you playing any sport now? Did you do?
It actually put me off sport for a very long time because there were, as you said, Gemma, there were only certain things you could do at school, and it wasn't until the sixth form that they allowed you to start trying sports. And to me, it seems surely it's better if you can try all sorts of things when you're much younger, because then you find out what you like. But practicalities around that or whatever. But it seems to be picking up on what you were saying, that it was somebody giving you that spark that actually helped you along the way.
Yeah, I think we've heard that today. But thank you very much for your comment. I'm sure they really appreciate that. Thank you. Anybody else got a question?
I'd just like to say actually thank you to all of you. It's just been really interesting hearing. When you were saying about the rowing, because I was just thinking about all I know about rowing is the Olympics, and there you all look like you're celebrated equally, the men and the women, but behind the scenes clearly you're not. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
And the other thing is sport has been a massive part of my life, because like socially, so if I've relocated, I joined a team, that picks you up, and I've really seen that with my daughter. She did 10 years in the junior netball league, and she joined Medway Rugby Club, and that's how I know Laura, and Tracy, and it's been like a really big part, a very positive part of her upbringing. And I just sort of wanted to, I think it's really difficult for girls becoming women at the moment, because there's a lot of pressure, social media and all of those things, that feels like there's less opportunity and less confidence about women. I work in primary school, and we're already having to deal with the influence of people like Andrew Tate and attitudes to women, to the girls who are 10. So I think thinking about that sense of sisterhood that Eleanor grew up with the netball, Saturday mornings, what a joy seeing hundreds of girls playing, interacting, such a positive place for them to be. And then moving to the rugby club. I mean, there were only a handful of girls when she joined. The under 18 started from about 14. And you know, that's been a really positive. And last night we were at a social that was built around friendships, around and it's such an important positive thing. It's almost, you know, like you're talking about well-being and mental health. So it's not just the physical stuff, is it? It's about girls really appreciating each other as well. So what can we do about that?
I'll let you two seconds.
It was a comment really about...
a question about absolutely. But I always used to think as well, so as girls go through the teenage years, it's hard, isn't it? And they fall out with friends and whatever. And then, but sometimes it's important to have different friendship groups in different orders of school. So actually, you have another friendship group. Well, I might have slightly disagreed or fallen out with you here, but actually, I have a group of friends that I play football with, or play netball with, or row, or swim, or kart, or whatever, or race. So actually, I think that having different groups of friends really is a positive experience for women. What do you think we can do about? I suppose what I'm hearing is that there's still negative stuff there about women in general.
I think it's stuff like this that helps. You know, like social media has so many negatives to it, but it's also got so many positives. Being able to not just show the professional, for example, what I think would work all across the board. You don't just see the professional shot, race, the match, whatever. Actually, having a bit of social media showing behind the scenes. You're on the personal accounts. I have so much fun on the racetracks. We go away for it's kind of like a long weekend with your friends. Yes, you're racing in between. But we've got the evenings. Everyone's on track with their motorhomes. It's a real social environment. And I've made some really good girlfriends on track who aren't racing, but they're involved in the teams. And and we have our girls club, and it's like just, you know, you have fun. And showing people that is amazing. I think people can go onto, you know, Instagram and see, oh look, there's the race, oh there's, you know, them falling over the barrier on the track walk with a glass of wine, or like, that was when they went down to the beach at Anglesey, and it's like, and it's things like this, having conversations open, that I think is how you promote it, make it less intimidating.
I think also it's education and information, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I knew nothing. And now I know these wonderful women, and now I know something. And it goes back to asking questions, doesn't it? But if the information is out there for them, and we're giving it in a positive way, and we're highlighting our sports, it was my sister that told me that. She was like, I think sometimes what's wrong with the world is everyone has their own perceptions, but if everyone was educated and had the information, people would make different decisions, wouldn't they? And they wouldn't dismiss stuff so easily. They'd go, oh, actually, maybe this is worth checking out. So I think it's making sure, you know, social media is a blessing and a curse, but I think if you individually use your means and tools for positive promotion, then even if you only get through to 2 or 3, hopefully that has a domino effect, because then a conversation starts and it rolls through and it rolls on. So education, promotion, and I'm a big fan of just find out. If you don't know, go find out.
I would say, hopefully I didn't give too much of a bad view, like, do you think they do celebrate the boys and the women the same in rowing and stuff? I mean, it's just more that what we were all saying before as well, is that it's the past that has an effect on sport now. So it's not that they didn't build the change rooms last year and they chose to build women's small ones and men's bigger. The team would have been bigger back then, and then the women's would have been smaller, and there were less women to spots for women to row in. So, and it's just the history that follows us. So it's like it's fair now, but it wasn't fair then, and now we're asked. I think the reason why it takes such a long time is because we're asking up, like, in all these sports there's like an old men's club. We're asking all of them to like give up their history, which also isn't fair. Like, I don't disagree. Like, I love like going to Goodwood, I love going to Henley Royal Regatta, I love all those things, and they are part of your sport. But it's just a shame, and like same with football, like how women were stopped playing it. It's just a shame that is part of our past, and that to overcome it, we are essentially asking people to like, could you put an extension on the building so we could have a change room, so the women could have a change room? And then it's not asking people just to change their personality or their opinion on women doing sport. You're asking for money, which tends to always be no. And I think it's just trying to make sure that we change, like, even if we can't get the money, that doesn't mean that you don't agree that the progression still needs to be there. Like, so like, you know, there's now parity in my sport at the Olympics at Henley, and it's great to see, and it's going to bring more people in, and then hopefully that will bring money, and then all the extensions come, that sort of stuff. But I think it's like, then going back down to the grass level, it's like making it, whatever you do for the boys and the girls, like doing it for the boys, and then whatever you do for the boys, do for the girls. Like, I know that there's this big, like, it's nice to have a big push for women, but it's making sure that everyone's inclusive. Because I think when we're younger, we don't think about being in different sports. Like, I swam when I was younger, and I swam with the boys, and like didn't think that we would go off in like different directions. So I think it's like keeping everyone together for as long as possible.
Obviously, you've got to understand the history of whatever that, you've got to learn from that, haven't you? And I think now it's about creating equal opportunities.
Like accepting the issue, but not keeping it
alive.
Do you know what I mean?
Equality goes both ways as well.
Well, this is what, sorry to interject, but sometimes, you know, and I'm right, because a lot of men have been allies to a lot of us and everything, but sometimes it feels like they think we want more. We don't want more, we just want the same. It's not, we don't want more than you, we don't want to overtake you, we just want to play your sport, or play the sport in the same way, with the same level playing fields, I guess.
It's like
And you're right, they shouldn't,
like at Twickenham rugby ground. If you keep the queue for women's toilets,
compared to the men's that is European sport, that is in the bottom.
That's everywhere. I think that's the last. That's makeup in the bathroom.
Okay. We've got one final question, shall we?
I have a question. One of the comments is around lack of PE time in schools. So my daughter's in primary school, so they do PE twice a week, and they have maths for 1 hour every day. Now, nothing particularly is maths, but like one hour at desk space. So she's learning to sit at a desk and do 5 hours of maths a week.
Wow.
And it's 2 hours of PE to get changed, to go out to the field and everything. And so, in terms of numbers coming through for boys and girls, that's like doesn't seem right. There's more ways that you can learn maths. You can learn plenty of maths in sport, for example, but there's so much pressure for them to do some hours of maths. Just like one example that maths something is.
And just to add to that, so I'm a governor, so I won't say school, but I used to get really cross also with my kids at school that if a class had like, been naughty or whatever, the punishment was you don't do PE. I was like, well, the punishment's never you don't do maths. Yeah. You don't do English. It's like it's still, it's that thing about it. It's still really part of the curriculum, as you say. It can bring so much. So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and
the question is around representation of women's sport in mainstream press. So it seems to me that it's improved. I think that for me it seems to be, particularly on the BBC Sports website, it seems to improve since. I think it was since the women's team won Euros, around that time, and obviously the success of the women's rugby team as well. And compared to what it was like probably 5 years ago plus, the women's sport seems to be more mixed in with the men's sport, depending on what sport it is. Probably a lot more maybe football and rugby on there. As an outsider looking in, just in terms of representation of your sports that people are looking at, how do you think your sports are represented with like the mainstream press?
Simone, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, sure. I do feel like it has improved a lot. Like, I like to read the news, and like I'm always feeling pretty positive when I'm seeing like WSL roundups of the week or even like championship. And I think it's also exciting for like the new deals with Sky, and that you're able to even just watch second division games on YouTube now, which I think is great. I don't know how many people know you can do that, but I think pushing that out there would be useful because I see there's not always more views, so I think the press could probably help with that a bit more. I feel like in the press it's improved. I feel like I try and not look at comments on social media because that's when it gets very frustrating. It's like kind of like what you were saying about having to understand the past to know where we're at now. Because I feel like a lot of people on social media, which I feel like in some ways does feel like the press. Sometimes
It's also red bull in the press, isn't it?
For sure. I think people don't, like you said, people expecting us to be the same or to want more, but they don't understand sometimes it's pay parity, sometimes it's need to understand that women's football was blocked for like 50 years, and that people are still developing and moving forward. So I don't know how you tackle that on social media. I think people can be on their game a bit more in trying to promote it, but generally in press I feel like it's been
And you'd like to see more football played in schools, would you?
Yeah, no, for sure. I feel like, because I actually work in schools as a youth worker, and I actually do see a lot of the young girls I work with playing football, which is pretty exciting, and I'm able to connect with them on that level. But with a lot of the girls, I still feel like it's the confidence to go out there and do that. And what you were saying about PE kind of being rationed a bit, I think that people forget how important movement is just for the brain, and like the young people I work with, so many of them need to move to stay engaged, and a lot of them learn that way. So it could be you incorporate maths into PE. I don't know. I feel like
that's quite cool. That's a really good applied thing. Like I was useless at maths. I actually had a teacher who didn't recognise dyslexia. I used to put one side of the classroom there and teach them maths, and me and this other kid, Giles, we sat there and did colouring in. And as a result, I had to go back and do like GCSE maths, do like primary level maths to study my GCSE, because I was not taught that part. I didn't know how to do multiplication or anything. But what you say when you go to school, they do 2 hours of PE. First, that's mental, because our bodies do not know that we're modern man, but they still think we're hunter-gatherers, because like the evolution hasn't caught up. Sitting down for this much time of the day is not what we're designed to do. But it has got better. At my primary school, on Wednesday, Wednesday afternoons, the school we divided, and we basically do outdoor or other activities. we had boys' activities, which was building things, going into the woods, sport, and there was girls' activities, which was exclusively cross-stitch. Wow,
Let's hope that's changed.
The teacher
The teacher is
Yeah, no, the curriculum is entirely.
equal now. That's
Yeah,
what
yeah,
I'm
ceremony, but yeah,
Same-
and stuff. I
same,
wanted to
yeah,
do that because I was
brownies.
Yeah.
I wanted like pictures.
do stuff.
Do you think rugby's like better media?
So yes, I
Coverage.
think the introduction of Iona Mayer has just skyrocketed. But for me personally, so when I first started to watch the Women's England team, we went to Esher RFC and there was 100 people, and it was just like, this is England, like that.
Yeah.
And we paid £5 a ticket. So, and then this is just a bit of a me moment, but we went to Twickenham 2 years ago when it was England, France in the Six Nations, and it was 86,000, and we filled, and I'm not gonna lie, it may have been the beer, but I did have a little tear to see what they achieved in their role. But equally, from a personal aspect, from Medway, we are so lucky to have Rachel Burford, MB, I think, an England Red Rose, and what she's done, and Shauna Brown, who is also championing on the social media and goes around and coaches rugby from our grassroots clubs. So I do think, press it in the right way, but also, I listen to Old Man's Radio on work radio too. When they do the sports roundup now, women's football results from the weekend, again rugby, and then and it's just, it does make you go, oh, hang on a minute. Even for myself as a woman, going, oh,
Do you think it was the numbers game thing again? Because like, without being completely brutally honest, if there's a point where the women in sports weren't that good because there were so few of them. Like it was like the odd one who happened to be into it. What are the chances that out of 1,000 people you pick one that was also really good? And so I think the jokes were a bit more. They had a bit more backing to them, so it was a bit more of a
But it's about getting that
now with
the numbers
fold,
up, isn't it?
now
Having
got
that
numbers, and you've got some seriously good players across the board, and that has been the case for the last 2 years now. I think the attitudes are changing. You know, saying that there was a friend who was really into football, and he was like, no, I watched a women's game a few years ago. He's like, now I'm obsessed with the women's games, they're brilliant. And not in a creepy way, you know. Just
appreciates the sport.
He was like,
he appreciates the skill.
there was a team. He was like, these are a brilliant set of players. I'm really excited to see where they are. Not because they're women, just because they're good players. I think that's more of a like certainly with racing, that is more of a thing. But recently, there's a few exceptional women drivers throughout history. Literally, you can count them on hand.
And also, I think, sorry to
it's all right.
found the role now. With women's sport, and I found it in rugby. I don't know about you in football and subsequent, but we need more women to watch the women's game because more women are like, oh, it's not that good. It's like it will be if we put into it and push it. And a few people on my team, women on my team, sorry, they are like, oh, I don't watch them. It's slow. It's this. It's that. Yes, but there's more skill on display because it's slower. They have to do this in a different way. To the men just talk, go fast, quick, get it done. Whereas the women actually develop technique, the skills. So from a personal point of view, I think sometimes the women, we need to champion our sport a bit more as well.
Sara, I'm going to give you the last word and then we'll need to wrap up.
I was
We're over.
going to say that rowing's mostly like around the Olympics. Like I don't blame anyone for not knowing about the 3 years in between. And because as a kid, that's how I knew about rowing. And I think this Olympics was awesome to watch how in the news or the highlights it was always if the men's race was on, the women's race was on, and the friends that I had on the team, I felt the men and the women were equally celebrated. They equally had pictures on the newspaper, or they were on that BBC couch and stuff. And I don't think that, I mean obviously maybe in the past there weren't as many women who would have got the medals like that, you know. I think it was 1992 or something. It was only Redgrave and I think who got a medal at one of the Olympics. And so I can understand that there's in the past it's been different, but I think again it just comes back to celebrating what it is now, and I think the Olympics did a really good job of that, and like it was really nice to see like even a lot of different countries that it was celebrated, men and women. And I think now also when things are highlighted that are like bad taste in how people talk about women's sport, then there's actually like quite a big like support behind it being bad taste.
Yeah, guys would be like made you faster than you kind of thing.
Yeah, there was that like quite. I was really distasteful. Australia, and he said that the women's Matildas were like watching the Tens women play football, and I think he got fired. And then when they were described, I can't remember what. I remember the tennis player, and they said that she was. They tried to describe her, and it came up on like her sport, and it was like. A mum and a sister and a tennis player, and then someone said, I don't ever remember you saying like Rafa is a man, a dad, a brother, like, you know, like how about we're just who we are, we're a sports person and we don't need all of our titles. And I think when that got called up, I haven't really seen it as much since, and I think it's again like
It's about people being confident to call it, isn't it?
Yeah, watching the sport and calling when you don't like it, and I think we're now becoming brave enough to actually say that like, if we don't like it, there will be people behind us going, we don't like it as well. Yeah.
I think on that note, we probably just need to finish, because we have open run and I'm sure you all need a drink or something, but I'm sure the conversation could run and run, and perhaps we could do it another time. So I'd just like to thank Tracy, Gemma, Simone, Aimee and Sara for being here this afternoon and for speaking very openly and very honestly, and I think it's been a really good conversation, so I'm sure we'd like to give them all